So since we had a 2-week hiatus due to footage issues and general busyness, I figured this week I will give you an awesome video. Also, if you're ever wondering what it looks like to drive through Texas, here you go.
Hey Lauren! I'm here at Texas School for the Deaf in Austin, Texas. Haha. And it's their homecoming week, so we're gonna watch a football game later, and there's volleyball games going on all day, and yeah, we're just chilling, relaxing, having a good time, and I'm excited to show you around a deaf school.
The first thing I noticed when I got onto the TSD campus was how quiet it was. Now, you figure I should know this, right? It's a deaf campus, but it's different when you actually experience it. The only ones talking were the kids from our school. It was like stepping into a whole nother world. Everywhere you looked, instead of talking with their mouths, people were talking with their hands. I see this every day in ASL class, but it's different when you see every single person on campus speaking in sign language. It was incredibly beautiful and a really, really interesting experience. Now let me tell you, there is nothing quite like watching deaf sports for the first time. It's one of the coolest things I have ever seen in my life. I grew up playing sports. I played softball and soccer, and I cannot imagine what it would be like to play a sport and not hear anything, not hearing whistles, not hearing the crowd cheer, etc. It was so cool to see how the deaf culture, so to speak, does sports and how it works and how intricate it is, but also at the same time how really incredibly cool it was. Another really awesome thing, and although this may sound kind of super weird, was seeing little kids use sign language, because to me, learning sign language isn't easy. It's hard to remember everything, and I saw, little 3-year-old kids using sign language like professionals, and it was weirdly cute, and I was kind of creepy stalkerish and just watching all these little kids sign at lightning speed. It was so cute to see their little hands doing little signs, and that may just be because, I'm a big kid lover, but it was really, really fun. Now, in ASL, there is a physical sign for applause, so I thought I wouldn't be hearing any cheering, but just because they're deaf doesn't mean they're not going to cheer for their school's team. Here's a little sample of what that sounded like. So when I go to college, I want to major in deaf education, and being outside of a classroom setting and being in the deaf culture in real life for the first time really just confirmed my thought, and that I really want to teach deaf kids, and I want to be a part of deaf culture as much as I can, whether that's teaching or interpreting. I knew this was the place where I wanted to be.
So now we are at the football game. They're just warming up. They're not really doing much of anything yet, but it's going to be a good game. It's going to be fun. It's my first deaf football game, so it'll be interesting, and we'll see how it goes.
Now, the idea of deaf football really puzzled me. How in the world were a bunch of deaf kids going to play football? As horrible as that sounds, think about it. They can't hear a whistle. They can't hear their coaches yelling their names. They can't hear the announcer. How is this going to work? And watching it unfold that night was honestly one of the highlights of the trip for me. Now, I had all my classmates who had been there the year before kind of attempting to explain it to me and how it worked, but they all just said, you really don't know what it's going to be like until you watch it. And boy, were they right. I was really surprised that it was basically just like any other football game, just less yelling and more signing. Now, while we were at the game, my teacher told me that the football huddle actually originated from a deaf school. It was made so that the other team couldn't see what the players were signing to each other. So instead of just standing in a line, they got in a circle, and that's how they communicated. He also told me the sign for out and safe in baseball games are really close to the signs that they use for sign language. Now I know what you're thinking. How in the world does a deaf campus have a cheer team? They basically have a big giant bass drum sitting right in front of them that a person hits with the beats of their claps and stomps and all that jazz that helps them stay together. They sign the cheers and clap and stomp, and just like a normal hearing team would. This game was especially crowded because it was their homecoming game, and they did it just like any other normal hearing team would. There was, who I'm assuming is the principal of the school, on the field signing the names, and they actually had a guy up in the press box that was over the loudspeaker for any hearing people that did happen to be there. The principal signed their name, they walked up, took pictures, and went over and stood with the other homecoming court. The homecoming kings and queens were announced, and it was a majorly, really awesome, special moment to see. The biggest thing that I took away from the trip was that hearing schools and deaf schools, hearing people and deaf people, the only real difference between us is that we can hear and they can't. If you mixed us all up and put us in a line, just by looking at us, you could never tell who was deaf and who wasn't. Deaf people don't see their deafness as a disability. It's just a part of who they are. Lauren, I'll see you on Sunday.